we feel like we're making as many right decisions as we possibly can.
Great.
We're thin with this. We're frugal with that. We try to be good stewards. We try to set our future selves up for success. And then we still, at the end of the month, we're like, I'm doing something wrong.
In the messy middle, you've now got to figure out what's the sacrifice. I'm seeing a lot of goals, but I'm seeing a lot of hard decisions.
I'm Daniel. I'm 31 years old.
And I'm Hannah. I'm 28 years old.
And we're from Dothan, Alabama.
And welcome to Making a Millionaire.
I am so excited because this is the show where we get to talk to millionaires and millionaires in the making. And today is no different. We are joined by Daniel and Hannah. Guys, thanks so much for being here with us today.
Thank you for having us.
We're excited.
We are, that's my line. That's my line.
I didn't even mean to say that.
So why don't you do this? Walk through, who are you guys? Like, give it. What are your names? What are your ages? What do you do for a living? What's the family situation? Walk us through that real quick.
I'm Daniel. I'm 31 years old, and I work at a small business. We're a print shop and marketing and design firm. Been there for a couple of years.
I'm Hannah. I'm 28. I am a music teacher at a local elementary school. I also teach computer science kind of on the side. We have two beautiful girls. We have Charlie, who is 4, and we have Allie, who is 1.5.
I love it. So when I hear a 4-year-old and I hear a 1.5-year-old, my mind immediately thinks messy middle.
Absolutely.
Would you say that you guys are in fact in the messy middle?
Yes.
Where you find you have nothing but tons of discretionary income and nothing but tons of discretionary time. And so life is super, super easy right now, right? That's the way it is.
Yeah.
Right. Obviously, that's the way all of us in our 30s and 40s and 20s feel like. That's awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for being willing to sit down and talk with us. Because I think a lot of people are in the messy middle and they're trying to figure out, how do we make all of this work? How do we line all of this up? And so you guys were kind enough to share with us a net worth statement showing, hey, this is kind of where we are today. So if you're okay, we'd like to kind of just run through that sort of level set. So when we look at your net worth statement, the first thing that I immediately notice before I see anything else, Brian, there's no debt on this net worth statement.
That's incredible.
That is amazing, and that's worth celebrating right here. You guys, have you ever had debt and you paid it off, or just you've stayed out of debt the whole time?
I did.
We did. We when we got out of college, we came into the marriage. I had a little bit of college debt, and we paid that off pretty quickly. This is before we knew about the steps or anything like that. But we just knew we kind of want to get that out of there as fast as possible. Was kind of the mindset.
Love it.
And I kind of felt bad bringing that into the marriage. Hannah didn't have any debt, and I kind of was bringing on this car payment and bringing on the student debt and whatnot. So,
But that was our priority. We knew that financially going into our marriage. We knew that debt was the first thing that we wanted to tackle financially, along with saving. But
how'd you know that? Like, what was the thing that
the word debt just, I feel like had been thrown around. So we'd heard debt, that's a scary word.
Yeah.
So we're just like
4-letter word.
In order to grow, in order to grow financially with our family, we had hoped to pay off that debt first thing.
I love it.
So,
I do want to celebrate, if you watch any of our net worth by age series, y'all are at a key crux point there. Is you cross into as a 30-year-old. And you're slightly over, you're slightly under, but so I give you all the benefit of the doubt that y'all are essentially 30-year-olds, is if you can have if your investment assets can be 1 time your earnings, you're crushing it. You're way ahead of the curve. You're doing everything right. And when I look at your net worth and then look at your annual income, I recognize you guys are doing a lot and making it happen at such a young age. That's something to be definitely celebrated. I'm super excited for you guys to be on the show today, too.
Yeah, as you guys sit here right now, you have a household income of $100,000 and a net worth of about $104,000. Give us some feedback. How do you feel about that? Like, do you feel like, oh man, we're crushing it, life is great, or we're behind the curve, ahead of the curve? What's sort of your feeling for where you are right now today?
I think it feels pretty good. I know that was kind of the goal, was to get to that 1 times you're, kind of following the rules and whatnot. We had a whole 5-year plan ready, and we pretty much failed at that the first year and a half. We said we were going to start grinding, start working, go through, rising through the ranks. And
typical 5-year plan after you get married.
Let's not have any children. Let's enjoy ourselves and all that. And then, a year and a half later, we're blessed with our firstborn. So kind of had to punt, audible a little bit.
We pivot.
Yeah, we pivoted pretty good. But yes, this was definitely a goal of ours. So this is a little clapping for ourselves a little bit.
I love it. So you've done a great job saving. You obviously have some investment assets. You've got, Daniel, you have 2 401ks. Looks like an old 401k with about $18,000 in it, and a new 401k or current 401k with about $13,000. Any reason why those are different, not consolidated into one?
That is definitely one of the topics we wanted to talk about today. It was just an old 401k, and I worked at a Fortune 500 company. So I left it there. It seemed like a good enough plan.
So it's a really big custodian, like a Vanguard, a Schwab, or a
it's
Fidelity.
using Voya, I think.
Voya, okay. Great.
But yeah, it just seemed like it was a good enough plan. And truthfully, I didn't know enough about the taxes, so I was afraid of touching it. I just thought this was working for me. I'll just leave it here. It seems like it's in a good enough, I didn't get to exactly pick where the assets are exactly, but it was just kind of their aggressive fund, if you will.
Okay.
So I don't know all the breakdowns.
So what about the current 401k? Is it a good 401k? Good investment options? Fairly robust?
I think it's fewer options on this one. Again, it's more of their just spread out into an aggressive portfolio, but this one is in a Roth 401k. The current one is.
Great.
So I'm glad they had that option.
And so the old 401k is probably pre-tax. Well,
Yes.
one of the great things is even if you have an old 401k that's pre-tax and a new 401k that's Roth, most 401ks are set to hold both types of those assets. So even if you were to consolidate this into your new 401k, it's not like you would lose that money being pre-tax. It's not like it'd have to be converted to Roth. You could still bring it over pre-tax 401k to pre-tax 401k. In our experience, a lot of times, if your new 401k is good, it makes sense to have them in the same place just because it's easier to manage. Just having one account instead of two accounts allows you to have a better view and a better idea on ultimately what your dollars are doing and what direction that they're moving in. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And then, Hannah, you have sort of two different retirement things going on. You have a 403b that you're contributing to. And then you also have a TRS pension plan that you're paying into in the state in which you work.
Yes.
What always contributed to because a lot of like educators, they don't do both. They might do
Just
one
do
or the other.
TRS.
What made you decide to do the 403b?
I worked at a private school. My first 2 years, I kind of did it backwards. So I was in private school for those first 2 years. And when we talked about investing, they advised me do a 403b. And so I put that in. And then when I transferred, we moved. They told me, eventually you're going to roll this over. And life got hectic and crazy. And I'm not as financially responsible as I like to be. So I didn't roll it over. So it's currently still sitting there.
Just an old 401k that's sitting there.
What's fun about that account is we kind of forgot that existed actually. So that was her old employer. She hasn't been there in 4 years. And then when we were kind of doing this, we remembered, hey, you have that 403b.
Amazing. An active
We need to
participant.
figure out what to do with that because I think actually it was paying, it might be managed possibly. So we might want to look at that. But then we're shocked to see that it had $7,500 in it.
Yeah.
I was worried it was all gone.
Yeah.
One of the things that I love you just said is, hey, this exercise to come on to Making a Millionaire, we had to like pull together all of our stuff and had to see what all we have and where it's all at. That's not something you only get to do when you come on Making a Millionaire. One of the things you can do, and we love doing this every year, is an annual net worth statement. And if you do an annual net worth statement at the end of every year, it allows you to see, oh my gosh, I forgot about that count. I didn't even know. There's $7,500 I didn't even know that I had.
Yeah.
So that's a great exercise that you guys should consider because I'm guessing you don't do that right now since you didn't know about that. That's a great exercise for couples to begin doing together just to make sure, hey, are we moving in the direction we want to be moving? And do we understand where all the parts and pieces of our financial life are?
Right.
And it can be a great communication tool as well.
It's a great communication. It's a great dashboard. It's just because these conversations we're having, like on the old 401ks versus the new, what are the internal cost structures? What are the investments? Every year you're going to get reminded, hey, maybe we can make this easier on ourselves by consolidating. Also, I thought you're for such a young age, I did still see a lot of life in your net worth because it was so cool to me to also, because y'all got Roth IRAs, you both have Roths. But then I liked, Daniel, you worked at Publix. Was that in high school and in college, I'm assuming?
I wish. I would advise anybody who is, 15, 16, whatever, start work at a Chick-fil-A, a Publix, somewhere like that. But no, this was just in college. It was.
Okay.
I was broke. I ran out of my scholarship. I needed to start paying for classes. It was time to grow up. And I said, you know what? I'm going to apply everywhere. Publix was the first person that called. So
I love it.
And it turned out to be great for me.
Part of our content team is Daniel. He was a Publix guy.
He was a Publix
He
guy.
always was very
Raving fan.
positive
Yes.
on the college experience, on between scholarships and all the way they treat. So it warmed my heart to kind of see that sitting on the net worth statement. And it looks like even for a college student, this was something that bared fruit, that started creating assets that are going to compound over the long term for you.
So here you guys are with $100,000 of investment assets. And so one of the questions we like to ask our guests here is, if you are familiar with our content, you were telling us before how both of you are huge fans of the Money Guy Show. Where would you say you are in the financial order of operations? And if you're not familiar, this is like a 9-step process of what to do with your next dollar.
I even wrote a book.
He literally wrote the book on this. Where would you guys say you are in the financial order of operations?
I think step 4.
Step
That's what we're
4.
currently working
Okay.
on.
Yeah. Definitely
Awesome.
step 4.
Step 4, building up an emergency.
That's a lot of confidence. I love
I
that
love
you
that.
have this confidence about it.
We're working
But
on it.
yet, in a minute, we're going to pull up what you're actually doing.
We might have ping-ponged a little bit in the steps.
More ping
That's
pong.
gonna come up more.
There we
Yeah.
go.
Well,
There
the
we go.
accountability of this is all going to
Yes.
come together.
Yes.
We're going to see, man, are we really? Because you are, by the way, we would agree you are indeed in step 4.
We should be in step
But
4.
Bo, I would like for you, can you walk our audience, Hannah, Daniel through what are they actually doing with their money?
Yeah, so when we look at your cash holding, remember, again, you said that you have about $5,000 in cash right now across your current cash holding accounts. Well, you know that our goal for a fully funded emergency fund is somewhere between 3 to 6 months of living expenses. So I'm going to pause here for a moment. Would $5,000 cover 3 to 6 months of living expenses for you guys?
Absolutely not.
No.
No.
So it is wonderful that you recognize.
That's probably 1 month.
We are
Yes.
we are in step 4, right? But when we look at your saving strategy, when we look at how you've been accumulating and how you've been building dollars, this is what we see right now. Right now, Daniel, you're putting about $5,200 a year into your Roth. I know you guys do a lot of weekly saving, but we actually totaled it up about $5,200 a year in your Roth. Hannah, you're doing about $5,200 in your Roth. Daniel, your 401k has about 5% going into it. You get a 5% match. I'm assuming you're maxing it out to get the match. You do have money going into your high yield savings account. So that is the step 4 part, building that of about $3,600. And then Hannah, you're required to put money into your pension, right? So you have to put 6% or almost a little over $2,800 into your pension. And by the way, that puts you at a 22% savings rate, which sounds awesome, right? For
And that's probably understated because it doesn't even include the TRS.
That's right.
Has some funding going in.
That's
It's just
right.
it's much harder to determine what that number is because of the way they calculate it. But see, y'all are doing great.
So we love seeing this, and that sounds awesome, except for when we asked you, where are you in the financial order of operations? Everyone at this table agreed that you are solidly in step 4. And yet right now I see that you have almost or a little over $10,000 a year going into Roth IRAs. Do you know where Roth IRAs fall in the financial order of operations?
After step 4.
After step 4, it's actually the immediate
The
next
next-
step. It's step 5. And what's happened so far is, I imagine, because you don't have debt, I didn't see credit card debt, I didn't see that kind of stuff. You've not had an emergency happen that caused you to have to pay for it, that caused things to run out. But that doesn't mean that it's not going to happen. So right now, you guys are living in sort of this uncertain, precarious thing. So long as everything keeps working, it's okay. But as soon as something goes awry, as soon as that unknown expense happens, you guys are going to be in a rough spot.
I would like to point to, I looked at your bank statement and I was trying to figure out all the money lines because it was $100 galore. I mean, so is this you, Daniel? Or is this automated that all these hundreds of dollars are going into all these different accounts? Or is this you like every time you get a little extra cash, you're in there and you're like, send them another $100? What is it? Is it automated
It's
or is it
automated.
manual? It is automated.
It's automated for both of us on Mondays. We just typically we.
I mean, because it was a lot of money line. By the way, I have a sickness myself. I mean, I dollar cost average every week with my investments. It really scratches the itch. But when I looked at your statements, a curiosity, a question mark formed where I was like, based upon how active I see these money line investments going into all these different accounts, do you dislike cash? Is there a mindset thing? No, I don't. I'm not saying that to be funny. I'm just trying to, because you're in step 4, but I see this behavior where you're creating this automation that's leaning it out as much as possible to get the money into the other accounts. What do you feel about cash? Do you feel that's wasteful because it's not working? Give us some insight.
I don't think it's wasteful per se. I think kind of like you said, maybe we haven't had the unknown happen. We did kind of recently, since having these conversations and whatnot, we had our washer machine broke on us. So that was an unknown.
Yeah.
That was
and
fun.
It's not cheap either, right?
not at
that's
all.
an expense you don't count on that happens.
I think we've just kind of been blessed that we haven't had something like that happen. We both known through this whole process, this is kind of thing we need to start doing, is really protecting
Priorities.
ourselves, really for our girls too. I mean, just not being so thin on the cash and whatnot.
because it does create that, and desperate decisions is what we're trying to protect you from, is because, and by the way, I think anybody who's decent with money, and once you understand compounding growth and how your money can work harder than you can, we all immediately fall into this trap of like, well, let's get it in there as fast as possible, because you get rewarded for that. But the cautionary tale is that you can't get caught without cash when life happens, because that's back to those desperate decisions where you end up going into credit card debt, or you end up just sacrificing or medical issues. There's all kind of things that can come up that can really derail your financial life. And we just prefer, and for you guys, what I think is exciting is that you could correct this pretty quickly. It would not, now the way you're going, this is going to be like an aching pain that's just going to nag you for years, because your cash reserves is just, it's anemic at how it's growing, but that could be quickly corrected if we actually turn that discipline towards actually correcting this problem.
So when we ask you guys, what is your monthly burn rate? Like, how much does it cost you guys to cover the expenses every month? Do you have a beat on what that number is?
Say what?
Off the top of my head,
41?
maybe more than that, but somewhere
41,
somewhere
48.
around
Some 4,000 or 5,000.
Yeah.
So you guys
like
were
that.
great. You actually gave us a
4 to
budget
5, yeah.
that we were able to look at. So we kind of have some insight into what it looks like. And you guys did a great job of sort of breaking it out in terms of
Look at
needs. What are the needs that you have? Your wants, what are the wants that you like to spend money on? And then you do have these savings buckets where money is flowing in. And so what we figured is that your total monthly expenses realistically are somewhere around like $5,100 a month. So right there at that 5,000. So because you guys are both working and you have a household income of $100,000 and you make close to the same incomes, we think that would substantiate. You could probably have about 3 months of living expenses as an emergency fund, as opposed to some people need 6. We think because you guys have some other stuff you're trying to do, that 3 months will make sense. So where we ultimately want you to get is to 15,000, and where you are right now is not at 15,000.
Right.
So Brian already mentioned this. We're moving towards this goal. And so how are we moving towards this goal? Well, $100 a month is going to the emergency fund. Well, it's going to take a lot of months at $100 a month to go from where you are to where you need to be. Then, but we do have
It's
this.
like rolling the dice. Like maybe life won't happen this month. $100 more.
But then we have this vacation fund and this house fund, and we're going to talk more about those in a second. But it looks like those have just kind of been falling into the emergency fund. So maybe even like $300 a month on good months is kind of flowing there. Well, if you continue at that pace, working towards the 3 months of living expenses, it's going to take you a little while to get a fully funded emergency. You're going to be in step 4 for the next 3 years and 10 months, assuming nothing bad happens. That's assuming no kid thing, no medical thing, no car thing, no water heater thing, no washing machine thing.
Yeah.
I'm going to go through all the things. It's still going to take you a long time. Generally speaking, when we think about the financial order of operations, we don't like ping pong. We like laser diligent focus.
Foo-ish is foolish.
Look at that.
So you gotta, because it really does. We're trying to, your next dollar is the entire focus of what we're trying to do with the financial order of operations. And by you guys bouncing around here, it is the foo-ish. And it's just, I worry you're opening yourself up to more risk than you probably recognize. And look, you've been rewarded because you said nothing bad's happened so far, but being lucky can only last so long because life does have that strange sense of humor that things just will happen. And sadly, when they happen, it rains, it pours. Is that you might have a situation where one of you loses your job, hopefully not, but it's the same time the stock market's getting beaten up, and at the same time, maybe a car breaks down, maybe a piece of equipment in the house, like a refrigerator that you have to have, breaks down. And all of a sudden you're like, how did all these things all happen at the exact same time? What are we going to do? And it just creates a lot of turmoil and emotional anguish and desperation that just doesn't have to exist.
So one of the things we think that you could do to potentially right this ship is if we, instead of doing the $800 a month through the Roth IRAs, which is technically step 5, we really did laser focus on step 4 and try to get that emergency fund built up. If you were to shift those dollars into that, do you realize that you can have a fully funded emergency fund in 1 year? Like 1 year from now,
That's awesome.
You could have that knocked out because and Brian talks about this in his book all the time, that steps 1 through 4 are really about, what do you say, keeping your life out of the ditch.
Yeah.
Right? They're about keeping so that then you can focus on 5 and beyond, which is really about building your great, big, beautiful tomorrow. And that's where we want you to get. And we think that realistically, if you were to shift that $800 from the Roth over to the high yield account, you could hit your emergency fund target in 1 year. How does that sound?
That's awesome.
Well, give us some feel on that too, because there's a sacrifice there. I mean, you're not funding your Roth for a year.
That does feel
It's going to
kind
hurt you more than it'll hurt me.
that does feel kind of hard for me to do, I think. But I ultimately, I think that is the best thing for us for sure. And
I agree.
seeing the numbers on that, that's pretty awesome.
It's doable.
Yeah.
It's doable.
Without changing any other habit even. I mean,
That's right. It's not even
very
about
cool.
like cutting or shift. It's just about shifting where the dollars are.
And I want you to marinate on that regret of not being able to do a Roth for the year, because that will keep you honest and disciplined, so you don't drag this behavior on too long. Because you always worry when you transition an asset or a stream, because you've automated your wealth building to a degree with all these $100 a month. Every few days, $100 goes to this account. I mean, that's commendable in the way that it is creating that automatic for the people wealth building strategy. But the problem is we're about to shut that down. And if you're not scared, and focus every effort to build up this cash reserves, but then flip all the switches back on as fast as possible, we're losing out on the most valuable resource in your wealth building journey, which is time. So that loss of 1 year is expensive, and you should bear that. But I want you to just feel like you have a timer working against you, so that you'll keep yourself honest and get back on track as fast as possible.
I think we would want to get back on it as soon as possible for sure.
Good.
Maybe faster.
I want it to feel like an itch, man. I need to get this thing back fired up.
I'll be eating PB&Js for a
We'll
while
hear
to get
about
us
it.
back on.
I love it.
It will probably speed you up, and maybe you don't have to miss a full year. Because here's the cool thing with Roth IRAs as well. You get until April of the following year. So if maybe things lined up, you could be like, good news. Yes, we got the cash reserves funded, and maybe we could throw the kitchen sink at the first few months to go catch up last year's. I mean, there are opportunities to even catch up beyond.
That sounds great.
So you may be thinking, man, we just spent a lot of time talking about cash reserves and like some pretty early on stuff. And the reason we do is because it matters. That's the thing. You have to cover your risks before then you can start focusing on the fun and exciting stuff. But once you do that, then we get to think about the fun and exciting stuff. And so this is where we want to ask you guys some questions. And I'm actually going to direct this hand at you first, all right? When you think about your financial goals or y'all's financial goals as a household, what are they? We say that money's a tool all the time. What are the things you want your money? What are the things you want your money to allow you to do?
Currently, we would love to buy a house.
Okay.
That is one of our primary goals. We've been renting since we got married. So that's kind of up on the docket right now. But then long-term in life, we talked about this yesterday. I think when we retire, because we only had about a year and a half before we had a baby come along, we didn't get to do all the things that we wanted to do in our marriage. We didn't get to travel. We didn't get to spend that intentional time with each other. We do spend intentional time, but we didn't get as much of it. Right. Just in between all the sleepless nights. So when we retire, putting all that money away, we want to be able to not only set our girls up, but also we want to be able to do things as well. When the girls are gone, sad day, but we'll get back to that just you and I. So buying a house along with later in our life, that money helping us be able to live retirement, intentionally with each other. And then also if we want to move close to our grandkids, because we've seen the benefit of that. We live down the street from Daniel's parents and it's awesome. Amazing. So doing all those fun things, taking the grandkids to Disney, taking us to Disney, maybe without the grandkids.
I love it. I love it. Daniel, anything you'd add to that?
I agree. No, that's pretty much it. I mean, she nailed it.
So we have two main goals. We want to figure out how to buy a house, and we want to save for financial independence. Those are the two goals that we really, really want to lean into. Now, you said something. You said that you live close to grandparents. Does buying a house, will that change? So you've been renting, and the house you're renting right now, what's your current monthly rent that you guys pay?
We pay $1,000.
$1,000?
That's it.
Holy
We're very blessed.
Yeah.
Which is hard to walk away from.
Very hard to walk.
Is that below market even in Dothan, Alabama?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes.
that sounds
Absolutely.
below market.
And so, so $1,000 per month in rent in Dothan, Alabama. Give us an idea.
How, is that like a one-bedroom studio? What is this?
It's 3 bedrooms. 3 bedrooms.
It's 3 bedroom, 2 bath.
okay, so obviously this sounds like a pretty sweet situation,
Right.
very low rent for a very
Right.
nice home. What's the desire, like what's behind wanting to buy a house?
So our rental home, even though it is plenty of space for us, it's hard to walk away from the price that we're renting. It's an older home, and I know beggars can't be choosers. I'm picky. I think there's a sense of home that I would love for our family to have. I want a house for our girls to grow up in. And I mean, again, beggars can't be choosers. We can't just be looking for a house down the street from the in-laws, even though we love them. It's just a place to call our own. And we want to do this long term. So when we buy a home, we want it to be, 10, 15 years. It doesn't have to be large and beautiful, just a newer home. And then also a home that we can call our own.
Mm-hmm. You have a rental house in a school system. At some point, these kids are going to go to school.
Right.
Is the school system good there, or are y'all planning to private school for the kids? What's the, because that housing, that's typically the first thing when you start looking at real estate. People immediately go down. It's even on
Right.
the realtor websites.
Right.
What are the rankings of the schools in the area?
Right.
So I felt like that's probably a good thing to kind of discuss as well.
Yeah. I love where I teach. I love our school system. However, I think when we
Is that in the same? Do you teach in the same school system?
I do,
as
yes,
Okay.
as they would go to school. But we've had conversations, and we think we would gear more towards private school. We think that extra, it is an extra cost for us, but we think it would be worth investing in for their education and their learning
And
environment
is that
going
'cause
forward.
and sorry to ask for more clarifying.
It's
but
okay.
Sometimes I see people who jump into the private school train, middle school and high school, or they start K through 12 and they're lifers. What were y'all thinking the whole way? Or are you thinking partially?
We've, again, kind of ping pong back and forth. I would love for our children to go to school with me. I would trust our school to take care of them. I love our teachers. So maybe after sixth grade, or maybe after fifth grade, because our school right now is a K-5 school.
You're an elementary school
I
teacher.
am,
Okay,
yes.
perfect.
Now, when I asked you about financial goals, you didn't throw private school out there. You
I forgot
said-
about that one.
Oh,
That's a big one.
it seems like a big one,
big
right?
one.
Like it seems like one that because I think all of us, we have financial goals, but one of the things we have to do is recognize money is a tool, but money is also a finite resource. So we have to figure out, like, if we have multiple goals, oftentimes we might not be able to do all of those goals, and so we have to prioritize how important are these goals, how much. Like, so let's walk through. You said, okay, you want to buy a house. What's the timeline? Like, when you guys think about buying a house, when do you want to be able to buy a house?
I think more in the most conservative range, probably 5 years.
5 years. Okay. And just so I know, what's kind of like the prices of housing that you guys would be looking for around your area? Like, what's a reasonable price estimate?
Probably about 300,000.
I think that's the max.
300.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. If we use that as the max, anything below that will kind of be like gravy, right? And so when you think about the order of priorities, and I want you to prioritize, you've given us 3 goals: buy a house, I'm going to say financial independence, but travel and get to spend time together again, and then private school. In your order of priority, how would you prioritize those? Which goals are the most important to which goals are the least important?
Buying a home is at the top.
Okay.
Then I want to say, well, because we could go back and forth. The private school is not something that we're totally set on. We would love for them to attend, but we're also okay with sending them to the school where I teach. We would love that. So I think we could go back and forth on those. And then I don't want to say at the bottom, but I mean, like, this is something that we'll do incrementally, saving for, financial independence. So right there in the middle, I think home, buying, sending our children, the school system.
So it sounds like what I'm hearing from you guys is buying a house is the number one goal. And then I'm going to press you on this.
Okay.
You said private schools kind of like the 2-ish, but also financial independence, because that's going to be sort of an incremental thing that we do. What if the decision to send your kids to private school actually impedes your ability to build towards financial independence, or actually pushes that timeline back? Is that a conversation that you guys have had with each other?
A little bit here and there. I think that is, financially, we would love to do both, but ultimately we don't want to clip our own wings. However, we also see the benefits of sending our kids to, there's a lot of great private schools in the area. And I think some of the educational steps that they could take would really, help them out in the future too.
So, but you just gave us a wishy-washy answer. What's
Very
the
political.
reality of, because I will tell you, this is when I was going through the notes, I think it's important. First of all, what would private school cost per child?
It's about this. It would probably be the same as we're paying for daycare right now. I think
A little bit more, but it's in the same vein.
Yeah.
It's probably about 800.
So $10,000
$800 for both.
per student.
yes,
per year.
around
10,000
10,000
a
to
year.
10 to
Yeah.
12.
When I was looking at y'all's notes, I was like, man, literally, if they say that private school is another number 2, it is going to change the way your retirement looks like, because you only have this much in resources. You're in the messy middle. We can pull up the budget again. Y'all are kind of already pretty lean. I mean, you're not wasteful with your money. You're very deliberate with it, and that's something to be commended. But in the messy middle, you've now got to figure out what's the sacrifice.
Right. I'm immediately thinking I don't want to be selfish and just immediately say, you know what, cut the investment, send the girls to school.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I trust the public school system where I teach, and that private school is just an extra. It's vigorous. And, as a parent, I want that for my child. We see our 4-year-old is very bright, and I want her to be pushed. I want her to excel. But at the same time, I do want to be selfish. I don't want to be selfish, but I do at the same time.
Well, I don't like you using the word selfish,
Okay.
because we've done so much content where I worry about parents. I use the analogy. It's the reason that kids' education typically is step 8 in the financial order of operations is just like when you get on the airplane. And the flight attendant tells you got to put your oxygen mask on before you put on the kids. How cruel is it? Is you go through your life, you prioritize only your children, only to tell them upon graduation from college, we're so happy for you.
We're moving in.
Make sure that you're successful with your career, because I have put everything I have into you. So strike it big so I can move down underneath you. Or, because that's essentially, which by the way, I love, just like you're talking about parents living down the street is great. It's awesome when it's optional.
When it's a choice.
When it's a choice, because then you get to celebrate it. But when it's required and it's kind of anticipated, or it's just, I don't know that I think that is selfish to make sure you save for yourself, because I want to release you of that, because I can sense like it feels selfish. I don't get selfishness from it at all.
Okay.
Well, let's put some actual numbers to it, right? So, but you said your first goal was buy a house. So let's talk about that first. I don't know if you spent any time at moneyguy.com/resources, but we have an entire home buying calculator, an entire resource there that you can use to figure out home affordability. And one of the things that's unique about the Money Guy show versus other financial shows out there is that we have some unique home buying rules. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with this, but since you are first-time home buyers, these apply. One of those things is you want to make sure that whatever house you buy, you can see yourself being in that area, in that house for at least 5 to 7 years. So first question, if you were to buy a house in the next 5 years, do you feel confident you're going to stay in the area that you're in for the next 5 to 7?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Yes.
Great.
I even heard Hannah say it's 10 to 15.
10 to 15.
We're there.
I love it.
We're
so
there.
Big check for that one. Next, and this is the one that I think is a little interesting, we don't require 20% down for first-time home buyers. A lot of people say 20% down, 20% down, 20% down. Well, in this housing market that we're in, where prices have gone up dramatically and interest rates are high, 20% is really, really hard. You save for it, and it feels like the house keeps running away from you.
Plus, we'd be hypocrites if we didn't buy our first house. Well, we didn't put down 20%.
We didn't buy one together, but neither one of our first houses did we put down 20%. So we think that when it comes to buying a first-time home, you might be able to put down only 3% or 5%. Have you guys worked through that math? Have you worked through that thought process?
Somewhat.
have.
Okay.
Yeah, not completely fleshed out, but yes.
Perfect. And then when you do buy housing, our goal is we want to keep your total housing cost below 25% of your gross income, right? So that's what you got to think about from an affordability metric. So you were great. You told us that to buy a house on the high end, because let's be conservative, it's going to cost us about $300,000. Well, that's what that looks like. All right, for a $300,000 house, if we're going to do a 3% down payment, we got to come up with $9,000. So immediately, one of the things that I'm thinking is, all right, we said we're going to pull $800 away from our Roths and we're going to shift it to the high yield savings account. And 1 year in the future, we're going to have a fully funded high yield emergency fund. Well, then the natural is, I'm going to get back to funding the Ross. But if there's not extra money, we got to figure out how we get to that $9,000, because you don't want to just pull all of your emergency fund, because then you're right back to where you started. So our cash savings may have to increase even beyond. And that's where what you guys can figure out is, okay, is this something we put everything towards until we hit the 9,000? Or if a house is really 5 years away, maybe we do some to the Ross and some to the down payment. You'll have to figure out which one of those makes sense. We know that when we buy a house, there are going to be some closing costs embedded. So we said, okay, if just closing costs are another 3%, that's another $9,000 that's going to go in. So with that, if we were to put 3% down and have to get a mortgage for the rest, and we assume a 6.5% interest rate on a 30-year mortgage, your monthly mortgage payment's going to be about $1,839. Let me pause there for a moment. Give me some, because you said rent's $1,000. Give me some feedback there.
That'll take some movement. I think that'll take,
We had always talked about, if we're going to buy a house, we need to find a mortgage, or we need to buy, and I don't even know what the verbiage would be, but so that we didn't pay much over what we're renting right now. So it always seemed like.
So if $1,000 is, and because by the way, with a mortgage, maybe you guys don't know this, not only do you pay principal and interest on the mortgage, there are also other costs like insurance and taxes. So if we factor those in, and the fact that you're not putting down 20%, you're going to have PMI on your mortgage payment as well. Your total mortgage payment, not just the principal and interest, is actually going to be almost $2,300.
Right.
So again, we're paying $1,000 right now, and to go buy that $300,000 house that you desire is going to cost about $2,300 a month. Give me some thoughts and feedback on that.
Scary.
Yeah.
It's scary,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
When you think about your budget right now, and you think about an additional $1,300 a month having to go towards housing, how do you reconcile that?
Sounds like some cutting, some slashing.
Well, that's one option, Brian. There's generally, when it comes to making financial decisions, there's two levers we get to pull, right? Yeah. What are those two levers?
You can either cut your expenses to the bone. I've already told, we've looked at you guys are not, it's not like out there like
there's not too much
the money around. You're not doing it. Y'all are pretty lean.
That makes me feel good.
You're making good choices. But that means that there's another lever.
Right.
You have to make more money. And that, look, you're a teacher. You sound like you love teaching.
I do.
We all know anybody who goes into education.
They do it for the money, obviously.
Absolutely.
It's not the highest paid. Now, look, it does have a very good retirement, though. I don't want to minimize that. Is that you do this long enough? I mean, I'm the son of a teacher. I'm the grandson of a teacher, so I've experienced that in my own life. Daniel, your career, because it sounds like y'all both love your jobs.
We do.
What's the upward mobility there?
I mean, what is there a chance that there's going to be something that happens over the next 3 to 5 years? This 5-year window that you've given us, that your income prospects are going to balloon?
I don't know about balloon. Probably not balloon. Like I said, I work at a small business now. We're I think 20 full-time employees strong. Okay. So as far as upward mobility, there could be something like that. It would be that would probably be more of an investment in itself, actually, potentially buying out the boss or something like that, maybe one day.
That was not one of the financial goals listed.
That's not necessarily not a goal necessarily.
Okay.
Maybe, there are certain things like that could happen, but as far as ballooning, no, I don't know where the upward mobility could be.
It sounds like you love your job. You're working for a small business. You love your job, but I'm seeing a lot of goals, but I'm seeing a lot of hard decisions. I mean, and that's what, and the part of me that wants to say, and more is because, and here I'm going to be transparent with you. I grew up in a house where we had more love than money. My parents were super happy, and I've detailed it in the book that I've realized the poorest of times for my parents when my dad lost his job was actually some of my favorite childhood memories. So I want to first free you as parents to know you don't have to have money to make kids happy and create great children who are fruitful and do great things in the world. Money's not going to be the thing that creates the great kids. But if you grew up, and I know you come from pretty humble beginnings too, is that I always felt like I had a little bit of a chip, and I don't know if it's healthy or not, but I always wanted a little bit more because I saw how much my parents struggled from the financial stuff. So I had this push that I had to go figure out how I was going to make things happen. And so I want to challenge you, because here's what I see when I looked at y'all's situation. And I'm not trying to stir the pot, because more likely your boss and everybody else is going to see this stuff too.
Stir it up.
But you have a moment in time right now where you're living in housing that is below market.
Mm-hmm.
That takes risk down a little bit, because it creates margin for you to make some decisions in your life that maybe are a little further out on the risk spectrum to make your life the and better. What's more? So I want to just plant a seed there. I don't know really if we're putting fertilizer on it or if it's even fertile soil, but it is one of those things, is because y'all are young. You're still young enough. And I always encourage people, take risk while you're young, because even if you reach failure, you're young enough you can recover without much consequence. It's when people try to take huge risk when they're my age now, I'm always like, you did it all out of order. But y'all are in a moment in time, and maybe this is even a discussion with your current boss, is that, is how do we reach your goals, but also I've got family goals, because as an employer, I mean, we have lots of employees. I'm constantly trying to make sure I'm keeping a pulse on how happy are the spouses, how do I feel like this person has a career path ahead of them, so they don't feel like they're just floundering in a job. I want everybody here to feel like they have a career. So I hate to be the one when you're in this happy life that is bearing so much fruit, but I do feel like I need to be a little bit of the anvil that says, are you challenging yourself enough? Because I don't see you cutting a lot of expenses. I just don't. So you either have to decide, I'm happy with public school. I'm maybe happy in this rental house as long as I possibly can to maximize that moment. And if those two things don't work together, you have to choose another option. Like, what's the and? How do I get more? As I was driving in this morning and I was looking at y'all's situation, and I was like, man, I just feel like these guys need a catalyst for somebody to challenge, to say, if you want more, you're going to have to go choose your struggle. And it's either now or it's later, because you're going to have to make some hard decisions.
Or you can reset your expectations. I mean, one of the things that we modeled here is, what's it look like buying a $300,000 home? Well, it's going to cost you about $1,300 more than what you're paying for rent right now. If you were to buy a $200,000 home, those numbers obviously change. They drop. And so one of the things would be resetting expectations of, how do we pull the levers that actually matter and kind of remove the stuff that doesn't matter a ton. Because again, you guys are in a great spot and you're doing great things, and you're fairly normal in terms of, we all think that the financial order of operations is like this straight line. I go from step 1 to step 2 to step 3 to step 4 to step 5. In reality, that's probably not the case. And in you guys, it's probably not going to be the case. Your financial order of operations may look a lot different. You may be kind of like, going to step 1 and then step 2 and step 3, and you're in step 4. And before you get to go to step 5, you may stay there for a while because you're trying to buy a house, or you're saving up for another goal, and then you begin working. What you want to make sure you don't do is the decisions you make today, whether it's how much house you buy or sending your kids to private school, put you in the financial circumstance that where you cannot continue to improve, where you cannot continue to move towards some of those longer term goals, and you just stay stuck in the present place that you're at. Does that make sense?
Yeah. We feel like we're making as many right decisions as we possibly can.
Great. You really are doing good.
We're thin with this. We're frugal with that. We try to be good stewards. We try to set ourselves up, our future selves up for success. And then we still, at the end of the month, we're like, I'm doing something wrong. Obviously, something's wrong. But ultimately, I think.
And tell me this is true. And it seems like no one else has that same struggle.
Nobody.
Right now, everyone else is doing fine.
They're all killing it.
Let me tell you, it's not true. The messy middle, it is a group. We have different struggles, right? But everyone, you're not alone in this. I think a lot of people, especially right now in this economic environment, in this circumstance, a lot of people are feeling that. So take it from us who get to talk to millions of people a year. You're not alone.
Yeah.
You're not alone.
Social media is the highlight reel. Nobody ever gives you the real.
I was going to say, you said you could eat peanut butter and jelly sandwiches every day. I'm the one who, I don't put pressure, I don't think, but I'm the one, I play the keep up with the Joneses game. I'm like, oh, look at this house. It's so nice. Yeah. We can do that. Here, we can cut this and this and this, add this. So I feel like we've had that conversation of, oh, I want to buy a house. but also that's me talking.
Sure.
We definitely, as a couple, we want to buy, but Daniel's also the one who kind of keeps me grounded. He's like, but what if we stayed? And I'm like, I don't want to stay.
But I love that you have that communication. You realize how healthy that is to be able to talk those things out as a couple.
It has been an option. I just, I've got it in my head. But I mean, like 100% willing to let it go. We want to do what is best for what, the goals that we've set for each other, what we want to do for our family, but also what we want to do for our lives when we're, when the girls are in college and it's just us again.
Yeah. And we've talked even on the way up here, not
Lots
knowing how this
of
might even go.
conversations.
But, hey, what if we even picked up music lessons in the summer? What if you start teaching keyboard?
How
What if
do
I
you
start
make more
doing
money?
That's been a conversation too.
just little things like that.
All right, before I give you your homework, any questions you have for us? Anything we didn't answer that you want to get our take on?
We did hit on it a little bit, but as far as putting some of those accounts together, so, the old 403b, the old 401k, what's the best way to do that?
So one of the things that I put on the homework is consolidate retirement accounts. It's one of the very first things. You have the ability, assuming your current 401k is pretty good, you can actually roll your old 401k into your current 401k. It's not going to be a taxable event, and then it's going to be housed in the same place. For your 403b, you can either leave it in the 403b structure, which is okay, nothing inherently wrong with that, or you could go to a custodian like Fidelity or Vanguard or Charles Schwab and open an IRA rollover, and you could roll the 403b into an IRA rollover, maybe the same place where your Roth IRAs are. And so that way it's all in one place. That way you can see it all, you can keep track of it. And it just makes it that much easier to know what you have going on. It's as easy as a phone call. You literally call the 403b provider. Hey, I want to roll this over. They'll send you some paperwork. You'll fill it out. Easy peasy. Same thing on the 401k. Hey, I want to roll this over to this one. They'll ask for the information. You can knock it out. I bet you could get it all done in less than half an hour.
And I'll throw out,
That's great.
Hannah, for you, a creative option is you might want to reach out to TRS because you're so young and see what the buy-in, if you could buy, because you taught in private education for 2 years.
Yes, sir.
You could reach out to TRS and some, they do, now you'd have to do the math because it's not always a good deal, but it's at least an exercise to see if you could buy 2 years at your age and so many years out. It might not be, you might find that these things tie out nicely and if you want to accelerate your ability to have that, because that's longevity protection as well. Having that good pension if you're going to be there for the long haul. But it's not always good math, but it's at least something to consider.
An option. Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. So step one of homework, think about consolidating retirement accounts. That's an easy thing that you guys can do.
Can I add one thing to that homework? The easy way, because I think you're longing for us to give the details and it'll help the audience. Go look at the internal expenses of all the different investments. See if they have index funds. If one does and one doesn't, that's going to tell you, because they're going to go hand in hand. The internal expenses, index funds, and then diversification options is all going to be the things that you're going to use as the metrics to help you kind of navigate and figure out which one is better than the other.
I love it.
Gotcha.
Next, you guys should start doing an annual net worth statement. You don't have to do it on 12/31. That's when my wife and I do ours. But every year, hey, this is everything that we own. This is everything we owe. And allows us to see, are the places we're putting our money aligning with the things that we place value on? We actually have a great template that you can use at moneyguy.com/resource if you want a free template, or if you want a tool, the whole dashboard. You can go to learn.moneyguy.com and check that out.
That's the one we use.
That is the one that we use. Third piece of homework, we think it would probably make a lot of sense since you are in step 4, but you're kind of dabbling in step 5. Consider redirecting your Roth IRA contributions from the Roth into your high yield savings account,
Just for a little bit of time.
so that you can build up
Little
your
is
emergency
possible.
fund.
Feel the itch.
So that you can build up your emergency fund to $15,000, a full 3 months of living expenses.
We're still in the beginning part of this year, so if you do it quick enough, maybe we even get a little catchy up at at next year.
The big piece of homework for you guys is I think you should sit down and rethink your goals and priorities. Hey, what are the things that really matter to us the most? We really want to own a home. Do we really want to own a $300,000 home, or might we be okay owning a $200,000 home? We really want to send our kids to private school, but does it have to be when they start in kindergarten, or could we figure out how to space that out and prioritize what those goals are? Once you have those down, then you can do the math to figure out, okay, well, how much are each of these goals going to cost? And can we accomplish them based on our current income? And if we can't, how do we have that hard decision around, okay, we can either spend less money, get the expenses down, which are already pretty lean, or how can we create more income? Can we do other things on the side? Can we increase our current vocation? What can we do to begin making more money so that way we have a bigger shovel to be able to fund all of these resources?
The big part of what makes the financial order of operations work is that everything in life is just an incremental decision.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if I make this decision, it's going to create this result. If I make this one, you guys have a lot. You gave us a lot,
Mm-hmm.
but I would just really, as a couple, you're fun to be with. You communicate well together. Y'all just make sure you're now just using those resources, those talents to actually create the plan of what's the incremental decisions we need to be making. And I like to say it, here's a cleaner way to say it. What small decision are you going to make today to build that great, big, beautiful tomorrow? Daniel, Hannah, thank you for coming on Making a Millionaire. Thank you for being so transparent. I mean, this is not easy because it's not like we gave you all roses of how awesome your decisions are. Y'all got some hard work ahead of you. But that's also the sweetness of life. Hard decisions you make now can bear tremendous fruit later. And Bo, that's also a great probably segue. If anybody else wants to know what hard decisions or even the decisions that will bear fruit in their life, how can they join and be a part of Making a Millionaire?
Yeah, if you'd like to be a guest on Making a Millionaire, you can go to moneyguy.com/apply. Or if you'd like to access any of the resources we shared on today's show, you can go to moneyguy.com/resources.
Well, guys, I'm your host, Brian Preston, Mr. Bo Hansen, Money Guy team, out.
Making a Millionaire is hosted by Brian Preston and Bo Hansen. Brian and Bo are partners at Abound Wealth Management. Abound Wealth Management is a registered investment advisory firm regulated by the Securities and Exchange Commission in accordance and compliance with the securities laws and regulations. Abound Wealth Management does not render or offer to render personalized investment or tax advice through Making a Millionaire. The information provided is for informational purposes only, may not be suitable for all investors, and does not constitute financial, tax, investment, or legal advice. All investments involve a degree of risk, including the risk of loss. The guests featured on Making a Millionaire are not clients of Abound Wealth Management at the time of recording. Their participation should not be considered a testimonial or endorsement of Abound Wealth Management.